Hello and welcome to the Advntrr Podcast, where we discuss the tips, tricks, and strategies to living a location-independent lifestyle. On today's episode, we discuss routines. We talk about some cool ways that you can get into creating routines, the incredible benefits that routines can provide, and even if you've never really built routines, we talk about some really easy ways to get into that routine, the routine of creating routines. And we also talk about some of our experiences where we've tried to in the past and have failed. We talk about how the nomadic lifestyle specifically has some advantages and some challenges to being able to create sustainable and really healthy routines. So I think you're really going to like this. We talk about some very specific actual steps that we both use in our life that are successful, some mistakes that we've made, and how you can create routines that improve the quality of your life and the direction of your life, even if you are living a location-independent lifestyle. We had a lot of fun recording this episode, and I think you're going to really like it. So enjoy. So let's jump right into this fantastic, delicious topic of keeping your habits, your routines, or perhaps even building healthy habits while you're on the road. I think a lot of people assume that if you're going to be traveling, if you're going to be doing the nomad thing, then it's immediately, at least I assumed, that it's going to be much more difficult to do the normal things that kind of keep you in line in normal life. So when I'm staying somewhere semi-permanently for a while, for an extended period of time, I tend to have these little routines, and they kind of keep me on track. You know, they keep my life moving in a good direction. And then in the past, travel would always be sort of a release. It would be an escape. And I would just kind of say, well, those structures are working well for me while I was home, but now I'm traveling, so I'm going to have to be at the whim of, I'm going to have to go in the direction that the wind blows me. Yeah. And very recently, I've discovered that doesn't have to be the case. In fact, I can combine them. I can get the best of both worlds. And that's actually what I'm working on right now. And I've had kind of a huge kind of breakthrough in how to do that. And I'm really excited to share what I've learned with everyone. And I know, Dieter, you've probably had experiences with things like this all over the map, having traveled all the places and times that you have.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I definitely have experience with losing my routine. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say on what you've discovered.
Yeah. So let's first talk about what do I mean by routine, because I know that when I usually heard the word routine, I would sort of cringe. I don't really like sort of having things planned out in a very specific pattern very much. I think you differ from me in that way, right?
Well, the problem for me is I'm good at making plans, like making these systems and thinking them out, and I like to do it, but then almost never I execute them, so I must be going wrong somewhere. At least maybe I'm not just keeping myself as my own customer in mind for these plans, because it seems like they're not really tailored to how I think and how I work. Like, for example, with the plans, one thing I've tried a lot of the times is making a fixed schedule. So at this time, I would wake up. At this time, I would do that. At this time, I would have breakfast. But if I put breakfast at 9, well, breakfast is a bad example because you're going to get hungry and be very motivated to eat.
Yeah.
But meditation, for example, if I set meditation at 9 and then it's 9:15 and the block of learning something new is already starting on my calendar, and I feel like I missed the boat on the meditation thing. And that's dumb,
Yes. It's a fragile system.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a really cool sort of mental model you can use, but I just learned about this, and I think it's from engineering, so you might know this a little better than I do.
Ooh.
But there's a difference between I don't know if they use the word fragile, but a fragile system and a robust system. Like a robust system has a lot of flexibility within its structure. So I don't know anything about engineering or whatever, but I think an example might be when you build really tall buildings, really tall skyscrapers, you need to build something into them so that they can sway with the wind, which is really weird because I lived in a place in Denver that was like, I was on the 28th floor, and it was really bizarre. When it was windy, you could feel the whole building move.
Yeah.
It's like freaky. It's scary, but it has to do that. You have to build that in. You have to account for the natural forces, and that makes a more robust structure, right?
Yeah.
If you built it just straight up with, and I don't know what materials they use, but if you just built it up straight up with concrete, I'm guessing it would topple over the first time a strong wind hit it or something. Something bad would happen. And it's not that concrete isn't strong. It's just that that's the way physics all work out. So this is all kind of getting back to what routines help to do with your life. They help you build a structure, a strong structure. But the thing is, I think you and I both had experience with building our structures with concrete, right? We take time, we plan them out, we build them up, and then once they dry, they're locked in place. Yeah. And the problem is, even though concrete is strong, there are natural forces that are always pushing on us and pulling on us in all these different directions.
Yeah.
So as soon as the wind blows a certain way or we get hit with a flood, I guess I'm really taking this analogy pretty far, but the structure topples. Like your example of as soon as you bleed from one little time block to the next, your whole structure has fallen down. And that has happened to me so many times too. I set up these little nice, pretty little blocks of time that are going to all work out perfectly. And if I just stick to that every day, I'm going to get everything done. I'm going to be happy. But what happens when you wake up late? Or what happens when, you're planning on having a phone call at 1, but instead you have to do it at 10. And now that's cutting into your meditation time, and now you don't get to meditate. So
especially if you're on the road so much, like that's a big difference between having a routine life and traveling a lot and doing the nomad thing. With a routine like life, a lot of these routines, it can be very structured, because you have to be at work or something at 7:30 anyway, or 8:30. Right. So you can plan it out like 7:30 I get up, or 7 I get up, have my coffee, have my breakfast, read something. And it can be very structured because you just have to get up. That there's that extrinsic motive for you'll get fired if you start late. Right. If you start your day late. So that's part of it. Also the location stuff, like if you have this habit of reading a newspaper when you sit on your couch, you're gonna sit down on your couch and it's gonna feel very natural to grab for the newspaper.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that stuff, like you're on the road, and not only your environment keeps changing, so you can't really have an association with your environment, but also you travel. Yeah, what if your flight, you have to be at the gate during meditation time or something, or
right,
or then you arrive and you have jet lag, so you have to have like 3 naps or something to get your system straight again, and you don't know, haven't figured out where the supermarket is yet, so you just you can't bake your healthy food. I don't know.
Exactly.
There's a lot of stuff about that makes all of this the need for being flexible a lot higher.
And so we're not minimizing the importance of the structures. It's just that you have to build robust structures. You have to build structures that inherently have some flexibility. And when you combine those two, I believe that is the magical secret of actually establishing healthy habits in your life. And if you already have them established, then taking them, creating your routines within yourself, that's how you're going to be able to go to all these different locations, all these different circumstances, and you can still have your routines. You can still run your routines. So a really important distinction. I think that is a great point with travel. A lot of times, like me, I'm always looking for the cheapest flight, and sometimes that creates some really weird paths. Not just the cheapest flight, but the cheapest path between places. And so that sometimes that means I'm flying at night, sometimes I'm flying in the morning, sometimes I'm flying on a Wednesday or a Sunday. And so if my routine was, okay, well, every Wednesday, that's when I meditate at 10 a.m. Well, what if my flight happens to be, at 10 a.m.? Or even better, meditate you could do anywhere, right? You could do on a plane. But let's say my routine includes 10 o'clock every morning, go to the gym.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what if I just go to a new city already? It's not going to be my gym. I might not be able to pack my gym clothes into my bag. I might have to put a lot of energy into finding a gym nearby. I don't have a membership, so I'm going to have to pay a lot of money to do it. So that's a great example too. If your routine includes go to the gym, then that's going to make it really, it's not very flexible. It's very rigid. Now it works perfectly if, like you said, extrinsically, if your entire environment is set up and all structured and it's all predictable every single day, then it's easy to have 10 a.m., go to the gym, 10 a.m., go to the gym.
Yeah.
But if you're like us and you like to change your environment a lot, then that becomes more difficult. And my solution in the past was to just throw out routines and just be like, hey, I'm just going to go with the flow and whatever. But routines have so much power. They have so much incredible power for all of us. They are the secret to most successful people's success in any endeavor, is they have these routines. And I always thought, oh man, but I don't want to become one of those people who just does the same thing every day. It sounds so boring. But now I realize the secret. The secret is to make them flexible. So instead of going to the gym every morning at 10 a.m., you might say, every morning before I sit down to work, I'm going to exercise. Yeah. So go to the gym, that has a lot of specific conditions attached to it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you change anything, the whole system comes down. But if you say, every morning I'm going to exercise, that could be anything. That could be push-ups, pull-ups, that could be taking a walk, that could be running, that could be anything, lifting weights, whatever. You could do that by yourself. You could do it with no equipment. You could do it with a full gym. You could do it with a friend. You could do it alone. It's flexible. And the point is that you have some sort of physical activity in your morning every day, predictably every day. That's the part that you need. Yeah. You don't need it to be with your specific exercise equipment and your trainer and your gym and all these things.
Yeah, and I think a good point there is that the focus here is on doing something rather than doing it right immediately. You know? Like, I think doing it right is important, but that's sort of what always held me back as well with exercise, because I immediately would be looking up like the perfect system, like the perfect schedule. I don't know how many reps of whatever you needed to do, and you read blog posts of all these experts and everyone's saying something slightly different. So I'm like, there's no way to do this perfect, so I'll just go back to watch Netflix. And I don't know, this is the more important thing. Like, for example, for me, I bought a pull-up bar and I'm like, all I need to do is one pull-up. Now, granted, I don't have the physique yet to do one pull-up, but the idea before I started doing it was like with push-ups as well. Like the only thing I need to do is do one push-up. And the idea is to create the habit to without thinking, drop down and get into position of exercise, you know? So I think that's a very important thing, like with your routine to in order to make it flexible, like you said, all you need to do is something, you know? It doesn't matter if you do it always right, because a lot of times you'll probably be like, fuck, I'm not just gonna, you know, I feel weird checking off exercise, even though I just had a 3-minute walk to the grocery store and called that exercise, you know? I'm gonna do something more. Sooner or later, the focus should be on creating the habit, and then you can expand and calibrate and make it perfect.
Yes, excellent point. So that kind of reminds me of a really cool concept that I learned, and it's kind of got a weird name, but it kind of helps to stick out in your mind. It's the concept of moist robots. And I got that from listening to a couple of interviews with this guy, Scott Adams, who created Dilbert, which is like one of the most successful cartoons ever. He's a really, really smart guy, and he mentioned that he was a trained hypnotist. He learned how to do hypnotism in his 20s, and he gives it a lot of credit for his ability to write and to sell and to do a lot of really cool things in his life. And I know I've actually studied a bit of hypnotism, and I know that it's not about like the tricks that you see on stages, really. It's more about learning how your mind works in a very functional way. It's not about necessarily explaining how or why your brain works. It just shows you what happens when you do certain things. Like, it shows you the input and the outputs of your brains.
Yeah.
So he said he got this concept called moist robots, which is basically the idea that we as human beings are essentially a moist robot, and we behave like any other robot. When we are given certain stimuli, we respond with certain routines or subroutines, right?
I'm insulted, but yeah.
That's good. See, you're running the be insulted routine, right?
Yeah.
That's been triggered by a stimulus, which was me talking about how all humans are the same, right?
Yeah.
That might be inherently offensive. So people have the be offended routine or subroutine, or they have the get excited because you hear the ice cream truck sound, right? That's like an automatic routine that runs. You can't control whether or not you're excited, at least not without a ton of work and retraining.
That's making my mouth drool as well now.
Right?
Ice cream.
Yeah.
Go on.
Exactly.
I'm not distracted at all.
See? So we're proving the moist robot theory perfectly accurate right now. So what does this have to say that's beneficial other than kind of the weirdness of it all is that you can kind of take control with a little bit of effort. You can start to be more aware of how you're already programmed, what sort of routines and subroutines you have, and how you can sort of take advantage of them, how to hack them to get yourself to do the things that you know you want to or need to do, but you might not feel like doing in the moment. So your example of the pull-up bar is awesome. He actually used the example of that he's done in his own life for years, which is even if you don't feel like exercising, put on your exercise clothes.
Yeah.
And he said, some days you're going to just, if you just put on your exercise clothes and then go back to sitting on the couch and watching TV, that's fine. But eventually, it's more likely than not that if you keep putting on your exercise clothes, your brain's going to kind of take a cue from your environment, aka the clothes you're wearing. Your brain's going to go, I'm wearing my exercise clothes. At this point, I might as well at least get outside, right?
Yeah.
And then once you get outside, you're like, okay, I went outside. Then the next day, you put on your exercise clothes, and you're like, well, I might as well go outside again. Okay. And then you get outside, and you're like, well, while I'm here, it is kind of nice out. I might as well maybe do a little bit of jogging.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the awesome benefits that we're talking about to getting routines is you sort of like trick yourself into going down these paths that you want to take, but it seems so overwhelming. Like it seems like the mountain is so high that you don't even want to start the journey to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So these routines are ways to sort of trick yourself into climbing that mountain. Now, why would you want to climb these mountains all the time? Well, basically something that we mentioned earlier is that most successful people have these routines. And the weird thing that Dieter and I have both found from doing a ton of research over the last few years is that not only do successful people tend to have routines, but they tend to have the same routines. So what are some of the common routines that really, really successful people tend to have in common?
Well, the big thing that I always hear is exercise, even though I've always tried to avoid or go around that.
Me too.
But it's true.
Me too.
Everybody seems to be saying the same thing. Exercise, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says that.
That was another one I kept trying to get around.
Gratitude, doing your gratitude exercise, journaling.
So these aren't just because you ought to do them or just because it's not like, okay, here's a really clear distinction. It's not like somebody who journals really likes journaling. It's that they do it because they have to in some way. Like here's another clear distinction. It's something that we've talked about on a couple different podcasts. So being successful, as far as I've been able to ascertain, is not something you are, it's something you do. Yeah. So these things are the things that successful people do. So people who are successful tend to exercise. They tend to meditate. They tend to journal. They tend to have gratitude exercises. So if you do those things, you'll start down the path to climbing that mountain, right?
Yeah, and especially, if you're living the nomadic lifestyle, a lot of those people are entrepreneurs and, everybody else is just a work from home person, basically. So it's just extra important to have all those basics in check. Eating healthy is another one as well,
And honestly, even as of a month or so ago, I was unsure if I could pull it off. Like I had all my sort of rigid structures at home that helped to support my healthy eating habits. But I was worried because in the past when I travel, like I said, I would let go of those structures. But I've since figured this out. Like you have to just be flexible. You know, it's actually really easy to eat healthy in a lot of situations. Like if you're staying with somebody, or if you have, like if you're doing Airbnb, or if you're staying like couch surfing, or you're staying with a friend, it's pretty easy and way cheaper actually to eat healthy. You just buy a bunch of, for me, it's just buy a bunch of chicken and vegetables and eggs, and boom, that's like $20 a week or something. And you could just cook a couple times a week even. It's like easier and it's healthy. You just have to change your understanding of how you're going to be eating. But
not overcomplicating it, because the whole idea is to take thinking out of it.
Right.
Make it an automatic response, you know?
That's another excellent point. Another incredible benefit that you get from instituting routines into your life is that, and I just realized this recently. It's so funny. I'm 30 years old now, and I just finally got it. The people that are really, really good at stuff, they don't spend all of their energy on reinventing the wheel constantly. Like
no, a famous example is Barack Obama, who has all his clothes lined up. Well, probably just wears the same suit every day, but you hear that from a lot of people. I think Mark Zuckerberg as well wears the same jeans and blue shirt every day because to get the thinking out of it. Because, you know, there are studies that say that we all have limited willpower, and if we use it all up on deciding what to eat for breakfast and to put on in terms of clothes, we'll have none left for all the important tasks we have to do.
Exactly. Yes, we have a limited amount of willpower. It's a limited resource, and everything we do, from deciding to handling situations, making decisions, these all deplete our willpower piece by piece. So if you wake up and you go, I don't know what I'm going to eat, I don't know what I'm going to do in the morning, I don't know what my routine's going to look like. Some days I'm going to watch a movie, some days I'm going to eat breakfast, some days I'm just going to get something on the way to work, some days I'm going to go to work, some days, if each one of those things burns up your energy. So as soon as you lock in a routine, your brain stops burning energy on it, right?
Yeah.
So once you establish it as a habit, and this is why a lot of great teachers say that habits create freedom. And I have to say, I always thought that was a crock of shit. I thought, what sort of freedom is that if you know what you're going to do every day? That's boring.
Yeah.
We called our company Advntrr. It doesn't seem very adventurous, but I've realized now that I was burning up I don't need to burn up energy trying to be adventurous in what I'm going to eat in the morning.
Yeah.
Why not be adventurous with what we're going to be talking about on our podcast? Why not be adventurous with the places that I'm going to see, like how to, planning those trips, or coming up with new product ideas, writing a new book, coming up with a new blog post. Why not have that be my adventure? And to do those things requires a lot of willpower.
Because it's a framework. Like for the podcast as an example, every Wednesday morning we both get up, wake up, do our thing, and then slowly get on Skype and start to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the framework, but the subject isn't, for example, or how long specifically we're going to talk, or...
Exactly. But my brain has already accepted that every Wednesday morning we're going to be hanging out and doing a podcast, even if there are hammers banging on the walls.
Yeah.
We've been flexible. At least once we readjusted to a different day to accommodate travel plan, and we will need that in the future, right? And crappy internet. Yep.
Yeah.
So we have flexibility built in as well. Maybe one last thing to mention on that. When we started the podcast, did you have a resistance? Did you feel a resistance to establishing that routine?
I think with this routine less, because I was trying to look at it as, I think I put the responsibility off of myself.
Mm.
That was a big part of it. That I was just like, look, I won't take, because the problem with me is as soon as I say for the next 20 years, every Wednesday morning we're gonna do this, then I want to escape. But if it's just like, all right, let's do this morning, and then next week's another week. I think that's the whole thing of put on your gym clothes, but you don't have to do anything thing. Where it was easy enough to start because I took it one at a time. Didn't look at it that much as we'll start a podcast regimen. How about you?
I was extremely uncomfortable because I've been living the last year where basically I didn't have any strict structures.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have any commitments to anybody other than myself.
Yeah.
So adding a commitment kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
Even though I was really excited to do it, the thought of planning out a time and sticking to it every week, that did not excite me very much because I started thinking, well, what if on that day I have to handle some really important business thing? Or what if on that day, I don't want to wake up that early? Or what if on that day, like that was happening probably the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man,
you start with the excuses. Yeah.
Yeah, the excuses come up. So just because all of these benefits that we've talked about, all of these cool tricks that you can use, it's still not necessarily going to be easy. You're going to feel resistance, at least in the beginning. And you're going to come up with excuses. But if you can get through that, which you definitely can, then you get to a part where now I genuinely look forward to meeting up on Wednesday mornings.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
And I have faith that my brain has started to relax about it. It's like, yeah, that's the thing that happens on Wednesday mornings and you guys will be fine, even if we don't know what we're going to talk about. Like today, we didn't know what we were going to talk about. And then we just started chatting and this came out. And I think it's really awesome. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So my brain just kind of accepts all that. It's not like, but what if you run out of things to say? Or what if you can't come up with a topic anymore? It's just like, yeah, you guys will figure it out. Yeah, so it's really nice. And now we're kind of in the groove. And now I know that this structure will last for years.
And does that give you confidence in other routines in your life that you're trying to set up now?
It does. That's a very excellent point. It's kind of like routine building is kind of like a muscle, especially if you're not very used to it or not familiar with it.
Yeah.
The better you start to, I think the key element is that you start to trust yourself. A lot of the reasons that a lot of us don't stick to routines or commitments is that we don't trust ourselves to show up and to do whatever it is. I believe the root words of confidence are trust yourself. Yeah. So confidence means to trust yourself. And that's the huge thing that always held me back is I didn't trust myself. It's like I don't trust myself to wake up in time. I don't trust myself to be able to step up to the challenge of coming up with a new topic. I don't trust myself to stick to a routine because I've failed in the past. Almost every single time I've ever tried to set up a routine, I failed. But once you do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, you start to be like, yeah, I can do it. I can trust myself to stick to this routine.
Especially if it's not if it's incremental,
Yes.
For example, like part of the podcast wasn't part of your master plan to have the perfect week or something like that.
Right.
But slowly you're going to be like, well, now the habit that we're forming is every Wednesday morning we talk. And then another habit you're forming is every morning when I wake up, I don't know, I have a healthy breakfast or something. And slowly but surely you're filling your time. You're building your framework.
Yes.
With tons of stuff that if you would try to concentrate on them immediately, you'd have a problem or it just would overwhelm you.
Yes. Incremental improvement. That's absolutely essential. So start off with one thing. That might be a good place. So I think we'll wrap up with an example of the routine that I am working on and finding to really enjoy. It's a kind of morning routine. And while a lot of people's routines would be more specific because they sort of have their life dialed into specific routines around them, like you said, like I have to go to work at 7, so therefore I'm going to go to the gym at 6 and blah, blah, blah. I don't really have that. I'm pretty free with my time. I can use it however. I do have bigger goals and visions and things I'm working toward. I do have responsibilities. I own a business. I have to watch over that. I have a lot of other creative projects. And something that I introduced into my life and I'm trying to make work is this whole nomad thing. I want to be traveling as much as possible. So my routine, I'll give you my routine and it'll kind of show everything that we've talked about on this episode. It'll show you a good example of that. Feel free to borrow from it, to take it and to use it. And let me know how it works because I'm testing it out right now too. And so far it seems to be working really well. And we'll also I'll create a little PDF of this routine so you can kind of fill it in with your own specifics, or you can just use it as a guide. I have it written down, so I check it. I kind of look at it every morning to make sure I hit all these things. We'll put it at www.advntrr.com/routine. That's adventure is very cleverly spelled with no vowels, so it's advntrr.com/routine. So here's the super success adventurer morning routine that you can take with you on the road. You can use anywhere and it will always work. Number 1 is gratitude. I find so far that seems to be the easiest thing to do right after I wake up. Like, boom, lift up my head. Okay, let's go get moving towards some sort of gratitude exercise. Now, this could be, I happen to have something called the 5-minute journal, which is, a physical journal that just kind of helps guide the gratitude exercises every day. There's a few lines for in the morning, a few lines for at night, and you just kind of write in like 3 things you're grateful for. You could also do it on your own. You could create your own gratitude journal and just write down 3 things you're grateful for every morning. Doesn't have to be crazy, doesn't have to be poetic, doesn't have to be anything. You just say, I'm grateful for having feet. Or, if you need to, you could just say it in your head, come up with 2 or 3 things you're grateful for that day. It's a huge deal. It's scientifically proven to increase your mood, increase your resilience, your happiness, long-term, short-term, give you more energy, give you more ability to handle problems. Meditate. That's the next thing. And by the way that I'm doing these things, it's not step by step. So it's kind of just, these are the things that I have to check off in the morning before I start my work routine, which is a separate routine that I'm going to be working on. So number 1, gratitude. Number 2, meditate. Some days I'm going to guess this is maybe going to be 1 minute. I have a meditation app on my phone. I know that's like such a millennial thing to say. But hey, that's where we live these days.
Yeah.
I use Calm. I think it's amazing.
I started with that too. Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually really good.
Yeah, it's really good. I was not a person who meditated before. I didn't know anything about it. I still don't really know anything about it. I haven't done like transcendental meditation or anything. I don't know. It's just every single person I looked up to kept saying that meditation was a big part of their day and their success. So I just had to listen eventually. So meditate right now. It's maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, but maybe it'll be more. Some days I might want to meditate for an hour. I don't know. But because of the flexibility here that's built in, I'm not saying meditate for 20 minutes. I'm saying meditate. If that happens to be 1 minute for the day, boom, as long as I check it off the list. If it happens to be 20 minutes, great, as long as I check it off the list. The next one is eat. I tend to find that sometimes I don't want to eat in the mornings, and it ends up screwing me later. And you need glucose. Your brain needs glucose to be able to make decisions, to be able to work through your difficult tasks for the day, to be creative, to have willpower so that you don't eat unhealthy foods and that you actually stick to your routine. So definitely make sure to eat. I have something called brain food, which means I listen to or watch or read something that puts me in a good state of mind for being creative, for being inventive, So right now, a great example, I'll give a recommendation for looking for Brian Johnson on YouTube or on the podcast directories. You can look up Brian Johnson. He has something called Philosopher's Notes, where he condenses like these really cool books with a lot of wisdom and cool tips and kind of the stuff that we talk about. he will take a book and then he kind of distills it down to the main points. And then he has these free YouTube videos and a free podcast where he discusses his favorite or biggest points from these amazing books. So just by listening to him, you can kind of get, inspiration. You can kind of get some really cool tips and tricks on how to navigate your life and improve your life. His podcast is called Optimize, and his YouTube channel is called Philosopher's Notes TV. So that's like brain food. You could also listen to inspirational speeches, maybe TED Talks or something like that, or just, read books that put you in a good frame of mind. The next one is exercise, which some days might just be one push-up. Other days, maybe it'll be an hour-long run. I don't know. But as long as I check off exercise, I'll consider it a success. And coffee, that seems to be like just an inherent thing that I get excited about. Some might say addicted. But I think it's a not too dangerous of an addiction. It's a fairly healthy one. And I genuinely get excited, like take advantage of your natural inclinations. And one of them that I have is I really love coffee in the morning. So
yeah, that's it. For me, I slowly discovered that listening to music that pumps me up, blasting that in the morning will help me for several hours after that,
So your version of this might have music as a part of the routine, like something you would want to like check off.
Yeah, and it's something I never really considered as a serious thing to do to get in the mood, but after all, I was like, that's the thing that actually works. If I put in my headphones in the morning and start jumping around listening to Van Halen or something, then I'm going to go out the door with a very good mood, with all the energy I need. So might as well make it an official part of my routine.
That's an awesome one too. Yeah. Music. I'm sure a lot of people would relate to that.
Yeah.
The last one I have is journal. So that's one of the things we mentioned is a common thread among a lot of successful people is journaling. And I want to get into the habit of doing it. I'm not very consistent with it yet, but again, if I write one word in a journal, I'll consider it a success. If I write one letter in a journal, I'll consider it a success. Some days I might write 5 pages. I don't know.
Yep.
But I just need to write something to check that off. So anything other than music that would be on your version of the routine?
Good question. Mine isn't as developed as yours. Eating eggs. I think that's a good one. Yeah, eating my morning eggs. And one thing that seemed to be helping me a lot in the last few months, because there was a lot of stuff I want to get done on my laptop, a lot of stuff I wanted to learn. My girlfriend would go out the door to work, and I would immediately sit down and turn on my computer. And I think that's an important point, like with your routine as well. It's a lot about taking the thinking out of getting started.
Yes.
I think that's what I did as well. Just automatically, she goes out the door, turn on the computer, sit down, and start, open up a video or something to start learning.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think specifically the most common thread with successful people is their morning routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, getting the right start on your day will make or break it. This is a way that once you establish these things, you won't have to think about it anymore. You'll just automatically be going in a great direction every day. Now, you're not always going to be happy every single day. You're not always going to feel like doing all these things, but that's where the flexibility comes in. You might not always feel like you have time to do them, but again, just flexible. If you did the least amount of all these things, I briefly for 1 second think one thought of gratitude. I meditate for 30 seconds. I eat, something quick on the run, grab an apple, brain food. I watch a 30-second inspirational video on YouTube. Exercise, I do 1 jumping jack, 1 push-up, 1 whatever. Journal, I write 1 word in my journal. Boom. That could take like less than maybe 2 minutes.
Yep.
And you could get through the whole routine. And if you check it off, you'll get a good start to your day. You will have accomplished something. And it's completely doable on any continent, no matter what kind of situation you're in, whether you're you have a lot of luxury around you, or if you're pretty strapped, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's robust. All right. That's good for me. I'm very excited to hear if you go out and try our routines and see how they work for yourself, see what kind of results you can get, and excited to hear if you let us know how it worked for you. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, would love to hear from people, especially people who have experience with living on the road, how they deal with sticking to their responsibilities and staying healthy and keeping a good routine.
Yeah. All right, Dieter. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom today.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm sure everyone appreciates it very much. And thank you, listener, for giving us a reason to wake up and do this podcast every Wednesday morning.
It almost sounds sad, but yeah.
Thank you so much, listener. Thank you. You're the best. We will talk to you next week. Hey there, it's Brad here from Advntrr. If you like this episode and would like Dieter and myself to cover a topic we haven't yet, we would love to hear from you. You can find us on our blog at www.advntrr.com. That's adventurer with no vowels, ADVNTRR.com. On Twitter at Advntrr Lifestyle. And on Facebook, www.facebook.com/adventurer. Give us a like, a follow, tweet us, or email us and let us know your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions. We also have a free newsletter you can sign up for at advntrr.com, where we'll share some of our best stories, thoughts, tips, tricks, and tools to make your location-independent lifestyle even cooler. Go ahead and sign up, and we've got some cool bonuses waiting for you as soon as you do. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode.